I believe that the secret to steering your life is realizing that you are never driving it. Of course, this sounds like a paradox, but I love paradoxes. I am a living paradox. I am an engineer, and I also am a philosopher. The definition of a philosopher is the lover of wisdom, a lover of wisdom. I love wisdom. I also like engineering. So this apparent conflict between something which is technical, predictable, concrete, and something which is more fluffy, undefinable, not very concrete, this tension makes my own life rich and interesting and allows me to be curious about the world. I guess I'm not special when it comes down to wanting to control my life. I guess you do too. I guess you are addicted, in a way, to controlling your circumstances and wanting to have it your way. And when you don't have it your way, then you get anxious, you get frustrated, you get angry, you start to argue with life, you start to get mad at everyone because everyone didn't comply to your wishes. So this source of unhappiness, which is very pervasive, I think, especially in the modern human society, where we got rewarded for predicting outcomes, is what I want to discuss about in this video. Because I'm an engineer, again, I need to operationalize a bit how I live my life and why I make the choices that I make. And I had, for myself, to make my own life philosophy a bit more tangible, a bit more concrete. And because I'm an engineer, I am especially predisposed to becoming a control freak, right? For most of my life, I wanted to impose my will on stuff. I also have, and I still have, hard time to delegate tasks to other people because I know it better, right? I know how things should be done. But this kind of need to control compulsively everything is also a sure way of exhausting yourself, of spending an immense amount of energy on things which ultimately make you unhappy, right? So the need to control stuff, instead of making you happy because you have this predictable outcome, turns out it makes you unhappy because for the most part you can anyway not really control anything, but you do your best to actually force that outcome, which is just a bad way of spending that energy. So what's the alternative? From having to have things a certain way and controlling circumstances, I decided and I realized that a much more elegant way of going through life is to control the meaning of how things are already, you know. So even if things don't happen the way I planned them, I don't start to argue with myself, with reality, with people who I think might have contributed to the outcome that I didn't expect or didn't want. And instead, I want to learn from it. I want to assign to that outcome a meaning that allows me to iterate over that outcome and get a better outcome the next time. And this simple shift in framing takes you from an anxious controller to someone who can design and architect an outcome that will realize itself, if you want, as a byproduct of this continuous shift in how you impose your will onto things. Let me explain a bit more. So I believe that the only real control we have in life is our own conscious choice on how we choose to interpret what happens to us. For example, to already decide upfront that everything that happens happens for us, not to us. We are not the victims of the happenings. We are the creators of the meaning of the happenings, if it makes sense, which puts us in real control. And this is the real and only kind of control that you will ever get as a human being in this world. There are a virtually infinite amount of variables that dictate, with no control on your part, how things will look like, not 1 year from now, not 1 day from now, not 1 hour from now, 1 second from now. It might feel that you have full control over what happens 1 second from now, but you actually don't. In a purely technical point of view, you actually don't know what will happen 1 second from now. Your brain is, of course, convincing you that you have full control over that because you can confidently project what happens 1 second from now, right? You are already there, in a way. And 10 seconds is also, you are already there. Like 10 seconds, you know, immediately. The brain is a predicting machine. It's a predictive machine. It knows exactly what will happen. Subjectively, it gives you the illusion that you know what will happen 10 seconds from now, because this is how we evolved, right? We had to plan ahead. We had to anticipate what's happening and prepare for that. But we all know that we are getting surprised by life quite a lot. There are events that happen that we could not have predicted. And that's scary. And we don't want to think about life like that it's completely unpredictable. But from a purely practical point of view, knowing for yourself that life is unpredictable and anything can happen 10 seconds from now, 1 day from now, I think it's a hugely valuable thing from at least 2 angles. First, you don't take for granted what you live now. You don't take for granted how things are now and just expect them to be like now forever. Like, you really appreciate the fact that, for example, you are okay and you are not in danger, and you can actually appreciate, right, the simplest thing in your life, just because you cannot take for granted it staying the same 1 day from now. Second, you really understand that you don't have control at all over, like full control over what happens next. And what that gives you, again, it forces you into trying to control something else. And the alternative to this kind of control, and I call it like control over circumstances, is the control over the meaning of the circumstances. Again, you can always control what kind of meaning you assign to the life experience that only you have. Only you have your own subjective experience of life. Only you can assign a certain meaning to what happens for you. Okay, not to you, for you. And why is this so powerful? Because if you engineer this kind of perceptual filters to match what you want to make of it. So let's imagine, okay, a frame that I always use in these discussions, like seeing obstacles as opportunities, as lessons, as not challenges, not things that are blocking your way to your own evolution and growth, but rather as opportunities to prove to yourself that you can do hard things. And despite challenges appearing in your own way, you can prove to yourself that you can pass these kind of tests of faith, if you want, and you even need them in order to evolve, in order to transform into someone that you can respect, in the future. This is like just a frame. This is just a meaning that I assign. It's not set in stone. I can convince you with all sorts of argumentation that life is hard and it's unfair and people did wrong to me and I should not experience what I'm experiencing. And I might be able to convince you on that. And I might even develop a community around me that will indeed will say that I'm right. And indeed, I have all the reasons to believe what I believe. But what good does that to me? How is that kind of state of being conducive to my own happiness long term and a day-to-day fulfilling life? Whereas if I say, look, I want to develop myself so I can enjoy more from life, so I can be a better model for people around me, so I can inspire people, so I can leave behind me a legacy that I can be proud of, that I can be happy with. So that in my old age, I will meet a guy who will welcome me with a smile on his face, not a sad, face thinking that I could have done better. And in order to become that person, I need to go through challenges, because transformation is not easy. Transformation and growth is a process which is uncomfortable. So I need that pain and uncomfort is part of the game. So why not welcome it as a signal for my growth when it comes? And why not embrace the fact that I am being challenged because I have the opportunity to prove myself against myself? Not for the world, not to prove anything to anyone, but to show to myself that indeed I am capable of doing hard things. And because I can do hard things, long term I will have an easy life. Why not choose this frame? Why not assign this meaning? That I'm an architect of my own life and the designer of my own subjective experience, versus I'm a victim of my circumstances and I'm just at the lagging end of things happening to me. Who says which kind of narrative should I choose? Is this a skill that I can get from attending a training, a corporate training, or something that I can take for granted because someone says that, like I'm saying that? Can you just switch this like this from today on? No. So why am I even talking about this? Because the first step in the process of transformation, your transformation, like mine, like everyone else's, is awareness. Is knowing that there is an alternative to your own suffering, if you want. To know that you are the architect of your own unique, subjective, perfectly subjective life experience. To realize that there is no one there who should be responsible for assigning meaning to your life experience. No one. And if you really want to have a peaceful, calm, fulfilling everyday existence, you have to be okay with having zero control, technically speaking, on how things will unfold, how things will be in the future, distant future or near future. If you can release the grip to have this compulsive need of knowing exactly how things are so that you can feel safe and happy with yourself, if you can do that, then you don't need success in the way that society defines success. You don't need, to become someone amazing or, you just need to know deeply that no matter what happens out there, It ultimately happens in here. Everything out there is in here. Everything, literally everything, is filtered through your own perceptual filters that you get to attune as you go through life. And you get to experience more and more of that on which you are focusing more and more. The more you focus on the negative, the more your brain literally rewires itself to filter those elements in your circumstance, in your life conditions, to confirm the negative perception that you have on life. The more you catch yourself and decide for yourself that everything happens for you, not to you, the more you will experience subjectively the feeling that the universe is friendly. That these are not obstacles to stop you from your pursuit of happiness, but rather opportunities for you to prove to yourself that you are indeed on the right path. Because without the challenges, you would not grow. Without being tested against your own faith into what you could become or who you can become, you would not become that person. I just made this up. This is not written in a technical book, right? Again, I'm an engineer, but I also am a human being, and I want to live life in a way that is fulfilling to me. So I developed this philosophy of life for myself, by myself, from reading, many books, from listening to thousands of hours of podcasts of people who are in this personal development space, right? And I went through psychology, spirituality, neuroscience, Eastern philosophy, everything that I could have, that I can put my hands on in order to help me crystallize this way of living and define this kind of philosophy for myself. Is it how things really are from an objective point of view? No. Do I care? No. Do I need to know how reality really is? No. Why? Because I'm just a human being. I'm just a human being. So I recognize my limitations. I recognize that I'm a biological entity with a brain which is constrained by design to experience this kind of objective reality through my own perceptual filters that I inherit from previous generations, from my parents, from everything, but that I also can then decide to put my own overlay, right, onto it, to have my own take on what it means to live as a human being, and how do I want to experience life for myself. And when I realized that everything is a creation of my own, and the way I experience life is purely the sum of the different choices that I made throughout the years, which all of them now, today, nudge me into seeing reality and perceiving it in a certain way that I now think and take for granted that is positive, that is healthy, that is good for me, that the universe I'm living in is a friendly universe. This kind of default way of perceiving how things are in a positive way, it's also the result of many conscious choices and decisions of things being this way, of things happening for me, not against me. So I'm just the result of my own conscious choices, that everything is good, that I need everything in order to grow, that without challenges I would not grow, and that I have every single reason in this world to be grateful for everything happening for me. I challenge you to do the same.